because while he was put in a difficult box, he may actually work his way out of it. You're telling me there's a real chance he is traded before Tuesday.
I think there's a better than average chance that he's traded. It's complicated, right? Someone's going to have to give the Colts something that they deem worthwhile in terms of trading a player of this caliber. And you're probably going to have to give Jonathan Taylor the contract he wants that the Colts won't give him, which is the source of all this issue in the first place. So a lot of moving parts, and there's still a chance that a trade does not come together before Tuesday, which is the deadline the Colts have imposed because that's roster cutdown day and they want all their decisions made. So a lot can still happen, but there is a decent level of interest in this player from other teams. The Miami Dolphins have made an effort. We have heard other teams that have at least checked in, interesting ones, like, say, the Chicago Bears, who have a quarterback on a rookie contract and may be able to afford to stretch to pay a running back beyond what a lot of people are willing to. Because, again, this is a 24-year-old player. He has prime years still to come. This is not a running back that is already spent, that has been run into the ground. So, and there's all kinds of other things to like about Jonathan Taylor. They have nothing to do with football. Great young man, great locker room guy. So it's not surprising that teams are interested. It's a little early yet to say for sure, oh, yes, he'll get traded. But I do think there's a decent possibility of it.
All right, RC, Gesundheit. Now let me go to you here on those two teams that we just mentioned. We'll start with Miami, and then we'll work our way to Chicago. Let's start with that. Put Jonathan Taylor on the Dolphins right now. Tell me what it means.
Well, first of all, we know everybody in Miami loves me, so I'm the perfect person to come to talk about the Miami Dolphins right now, especially this week. Listen, I think if he becomes a Miami Dolphins, that's a team to me that immediately elevates themselves into the AFC Championship picture. Mike McDaniel's background is in the run game. He worked in the run game with Chris Forster in Washington way back in 2012. He was an offensive line guy. He's just extremely slim. And so when you think about the way that Mike McDaniel sees football, he wants a run game with a one-cut slasher that can absolutely hit home runs. That's who Jonathan Taylor is. Now, this is a team that's already a 4x1 with the Raheem Mostert, with Tyreek Hill, with Jalen Waddle. You add that sort of speed and explosion in the backfield, and that's an offense that you have to figure out a way to stop. Are you going to go 7 in the box so you can play too high and stop those speedy receivers on the outside and let Jonathan Taylor kill you? Or are you going to stack the box with 8 and leave some lonely cornerback on an island with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill? So I believe that's a great move, not only for Jonathan Taylor, but for the Miami Dolphins. Now, the Chicago Bears is different. The Chicago Bears are building a team, but they have the money with a rookie quarterback on that contract to pay Jonathan Taylor. If it's a Dolphin team, they become a Super Bowl contender. If it's the Chicago Bears, they put themselves in a better place to win the NFC North. It's just figuring out if you can get that done before Tuesday.
Look, I completely agree. If we can focus on the Bears side of this for just a brief moment, remember where they're coming from. They had the first pick in the draft. They were the worst team in the NFL last year. It is a long way to go from there to the playoffs. But I genuinely believe with all the improvements they've already made, you put Jonathan Taylor on that team, I think they do become a legitimate playoff threat, Dan.
And even if they don't, it's a building block piece, right? Like even if you're saying they're still a year away, he'll still be there if you sign him a year from now. But yes, immediate help for a team that is dealing with all kinds of offensive line problems right now. Like they've had a lot of injuries up front. And to get a dynamic running back to pair with your dynamic running quarterback could really be something that helps helps your protection basically without being able to reinforce the line until everybody gets healthy. So it makes a lot of sense. It would be a lot of fun. We'll see if it's something they can make happen.
All right, we will again. Jonathan Taylor. It sounds like there's a real shot he gets dealt between now and Tuesday. And again, it's in everyone's best interest if they figure out a way to do. All right, it's fascinating to me, Danny. Let me bring you in on this. RC. Wait a minute. If you're going to make that sound, I have to come to you first. Why are you feeling that way, RC?
Ooh. Man, I like strong Louis Riddick. There's nothing better than Louis Riddick with the wrinkles right here. He'd be really ticked off. Louis Riddick is absolutely right, though. Why are we letting the San Francisco 49ers off the hook for what may be the worst trade-up draft pick in the history of football, in the history of the NFL draft? To trade what they gave up to move up to 3 to draft Trey Lance because you wanted an athletic guy and you passed on Justin Fields, who had all of those traits, actually more of those traits than Trey Lance. Is showing those to pass on that and Trey Lance be your third guy behind Sam Darnold, who we know can't play? That's a problem. We would have to dissect the ideology of making that pick, and we're not because of Brock Purdy. The other thing is this, and I'll say this to Louis Riddick, I'll say this to Dan Graziano, I'll say this to Mike Greenberg. 2 wrongs do not make a right. We don't have to make a bad decision to cover up or have a makeup on another bad decision. They made a bad decision in drafting Trey Lance. That doesn't mean you have to make him your starter or keep him as your number 2 quarterback because you made a bad decision then. It's okay to say I was wrong. It's okay to say we have to move on. And that's what it seemed the San Francisco 49ers are doing. 2 wrongs do not make a right, so I love the way they proceeded forward after making a huge mistake.
What do you think, Danny?
That's true. I mean, look, the answer to the question of why are we letting them off the hook is because of how good they still are, right? So if they win the Super Bowl with Brock Purdy at quarterback, then I think all is forgiven. And yes, there are legitimate questions about how much better could you have made the team around Brock Purdy if you'd used those other picks differently. All those picks you spent on Trey Lance. Fair enough. But if you win the Super Bowl, then people forgive all kinds of stuff. If they don't, right? If Brock Purdy also flops, right? Now you got a problem. And the Trey Lance mistake is the kind of thing that gets people fired, right? Like John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan have enough in the bank there in San Francisco and have built a good enough team that they're not in that danger. But if the whole thing were to fall apart and you're able to look back and say, look at the cost of this move and how wrong it was, it's the kind of thing that can affect the future of a lot of people in that organization.
I also think there were unique circumstances here. I mean, Trey Lance was supposed to be the starting quarterback a year ago, and he got hurt, and now he's gotten beaten out by everybody, and we all understand the unique history he has. He's never played.
Right.
The kid has never played. He makes Anthony Richardson look like a grizzled veteran. He has played so little football since high school, Dan, and through circumstances that aren't really anybody's fault, he's just not ready yet.
But they knew that, and the problem is they underestimated the significance of it, right? Like they knew they had a quarterback, right? They had Jimmy Garoppolo. You talk about dissecting the reasoning behind the pick, RC. They felt like Jimmy Garoppolo had a ceiling and a limit to how far he could take them. They felt like Jimmy Garoppolo was a player that couldn't stay on the field. So you have Trey Lance coming in, who did not have an injury history until he got to the NFL, and Kyle Shanahan had just been smoked a couple months earlier by Josh Allen and the Bills, and had fallen in love with the concept of like, wow, if I had a guy that could do all that, I could really elevate my offense beyond anywhere it's ever been before. So that was the theory. And obviously it didn't work out because, I mean, now you have a guy that can't beat out Sam Darnold to be the backup. Their plans are not set in stone. I believe if they see what they want to see in the first drive of the game, that could be all it gets.
Yeah.
But if they feel like they need 2 or 3 in order to see whatever it is they're trying to get out of this, then that's what it'll be. But they're going into this with the plan fluid. You're not going to see him much. He's not going to play like the whole first half or anything like that. But it could be just one drive, and it'll depend on how that drive goes.
All right, and so I'm trying to make up my own mind. I mean, obviously, the only thing that really matters is that everyone gets up and walks back to the huddle at the end of every play.
That is correct.
But I am also wondering if there are things that we will see in this that will matter, which is to say, RC, is there anything we might see in this game tomorrow night that you will take away from it and say that was significant as far as Rodgers and the Jets?
Yeah, listen, Greeny, it's about protecting Aaron Rodgers. And here's what we know. Aaron Rodgers playing this week is not about him. It's about the rest of his teammates. You have to protect your first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback. You have to protect the quarterback that you have basically staked your entire season on his health and his ability to raise the level of play of all of those around him. So what happens if Aaron Rodgers is under duress? What happens if Aaron Aaron Rodgers is hit repeatedly? How does that offensive line respond? More importantly, how does Aaron Rodgers react? What does Robert Saleh say to his offensive line? How does Nathaniel Hackett get all of those things to work? And so, in that sense, I think this test run is good. The thing is, if all of those things go bad, how in the hell do you fix them before you play the Buffalo Bills in prime time? I'd rather just show up and not know and at least be surprised and be like, oh, hell, we suck up front. But now you won't have that. And so tonight is all important to make sure that Aaron Rodgers has confidence in his offensive line so he can be the great player, and as Mike Tannenbaum likes to say, the force multiplier he's been for the last 2 decades.
I will say this. If he is hit repeatedly, I'm done. If he gets hit a second, they should not allow him to get hit a second time. If he gets hit once, I'll live with it. He gets hit a second, take me instead.
He won't allow it.
Yeah.
He'll throw that ball in the dirt in a second. Like, he is going to do whatever he can to not get hit in that game.
Keep everyone the heck away from Aaron. This is everything that we have riding on this thing. All right. Is that where we are now, Dan Graziano, with Dak Prescott? That it is all about whether or not he can put the team on his back when they need him to and take them where they haven't been.
Yeah, because Swagu's point was the ones that have delivered, right? The quarterbacks that have gotten to the Super Bowl, that have gone past where Dak Prescott has gone. Right? We know he can play in the NFL. We know he's a starting quarterback in the NFL and a good one. What we don't know is, can he be a championship quarterback? The Dallas Cowboys believe it. We've seen Patrick Mahomes, when the game is falling apart, right? When his ankle is sprained, still elevate himself and everyone around him to the point they get to the Super Bowl. We've seen Joe Burrow in situations where he's been sacked 9 times in a playoff game, still find a way to win it. You know, we look at these guys and we say, there's going to come a moment. There's going to come a moment where everything is falling apart. Can you be the guy that for your team, the highest paid guy on the field, can you be that guy that overcomes it? We have, maybe Dak Prescott can.
Yeah.
So far, and this is Marcus's point, so far he has not been.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.